Okay, as I was saying before, the qualitative data right here is not going to be just reduced to numbers, not going to be, well, it's not going to have anything to do or to deal with numbers in this case. So, um, this is going to be just related, as you can see over there, related to concepts, opinions, values, behaviors, and people in social contexts. And here, what you have to take into account is going to be just the transcriptions of those interviews that you're going to do in an oral way, right? And also the notes that you're going to get, for example, from observations, from activities, that is going to be just called verbatim. Okay. Wow. In here, you're going to find some types of qualitative data. I was talking about this last class. And well, you have structured texts. So, for example, like writing stories, survey comments, news articles, books, etc. But I think you're not working with this kind of information, or maybe yes, just related inside the theoretical framework and the literature review. You have, for example, unstructured text, sorry. So the one related to your transcriptions about focus groups, but you're not working with focus groups, maybe conversations you have with your participants, if that is going to be useful. And you're going to work also with transcriptions about the interviews, right? So in this case, the semi-structured interviews. Okay. You have also the audio recordings, if needed. Maybe music, but if your project is going to be just related to music, okay? And with your recordings, if you have recorded, for example, a class or something like that, for you to have some visual ideas or visual concepts that are going to be explained inside your data analysis process. Let's see, or let's take a look about this part related to the collection of data methods, right? The data collection methods, sorry. So we have, for example, three main ideas on how to collect data. So we have the observation, the interview, the focus group, or maybe a discussion, or maybe some other methods like, for example, rapid assessment procedure, free listing, pile sort, ranking, life story, a biography, or something like that, but just related to the what? Related to activities that are going to be developed inside the classroom, okay? In which you're going to get data. So for example, when we're talking about the focus group, right? That is going to be just that is going to be just guided by questions. So you're going to let the participants to talk about among them, right? But led, sorry, by some questions or some directions in which they're going to talk, and you're going to transcribe that later on. So that is going to be suggested for you to record those sessions if you have the possibility in order to create a focus group or a discussion. The interviews, you know what is going to be like that. It's going to be some like asking questions, and then they're going to give you their answers, right? So it could be structured, semi-structured, or unstructured, right? And that's all. And the observation, we're going to talk about a little bit about that later on, right? So that is going to be just focused on understanding what people say, what people do, and the kind of access that you're going to get, or you're going to have related to what they know about a situation or how they behave about a situation. Okay, these were some like a kind of questions, but you already created those questions. But in the case, you need to, for example, take into account or into consideration some like the questions, and if those questions are going to be understood as hypothetical, provocative, ideal, interpretative, leading, loading, multiple, this information that is inside that model in your course, in our course, is going to be useful for you to start talking about that in the following chapter, chapter number 4, right? And here,
Teacher, a question.
yes,
So we need to classify our questions that we made, if they are hypothetical and all that.
yes, it could be, yes, why not? So we can, for example, see if those questions are hypothetical, provocative, ideal, blah blah blah, and the kind of answers you got from it, right? If, for example, the question that you created, implemented, was successfully dealt with the objective inside the instrument or not, right? So we can deal with this information here. Okay. Another thing right here, for example, of this kind of questions, we have right here the focus. And this focus are going to be just related, for example, for experience, opinion, feelings, knowledge, and input related to what we did right here with the types of questions. Okay, that's kind of good. Okay, okay. Now, for you to create your transcription, it is going to be done in the following way. It could be right here something that is called verbatim, meaning word by word, right? In which you're going to use verbal expressions and non-verbal expressions. Example, if, for example, got it. If they send you a voice message, let's say through WhatsApp or Facebook or I don't know any other source for you to have access to that information, um, you're going to listen to it and you're going to transcribe that. Those words that you can understand and those others that you can't understand. And those others which are going to be just related to onomatopoeic sounds. Example, sounds about hesitation. Well, those words are going to be just transcribed, right? Not that exaggerated, but they are going to give you key aspects for you to see if they really understood the question or if they were doing some kind of noises in order to avoid the question, or in the end, if they were not that sure to create a very linked, very good linked utterances, right? So that is going to be the way. For example, if there are some kind of sounds, like let's suppose that there is going to be in the background there's the sound of a motor, of a car, of a motorcycle, of a somebody talking. You can put that also, right? So for what? For you to see the realism inside the text. You are going to do the transcription by yourself. So that is going to be time consuming, right? So you can start doing that. Okay. Okay. This could be some like the metadata, right? For you to have a very organized document per instrument. Example. So you have the project title, the date of data collection, the place of data collection. So if it was via Facebook, okay, Facebook. Via email, email. Via WhatsApp, okay, WhatsApp. Or if it was, for example, via Zoom or something like that, that is going to be just the place of data collection, right? Okay, ID code for informants. So remember that you're not going to add proper names. Sorry, you're not going to use the real names of the participants. So you can use, for example, S1, S2, S3, S6, if you want to code students in that way, or teacher 1, teacher 2, so T1, T2, or if you want to give different names, Ramon, Josefina, Anacleta, Pancracio, Claudio, Marcelo, I don't know. That depends on you. So those are going to be just the codes for the informants. Okay. Okay. Research team. So in this case, I think we are inside. That is, we are inside. Grillex and Silex. So it can be included over there. Then the method of data collection. So the method of data collection is going to be just related to if it was an instrument, the observation, the survey, whatever. And finally, the documentation type, meaning the way, the technique you have used in order to gather the information. Tape recorder, but in this case, we're not using tape recorders anymore. So let's say something like a voice message, could be audio file, video recording, I don't know, maybe observations, notes, that's it. Something like the technique you have implemented in order for you to gather that information. Are you understanding me? Are you following me?
Yes, teacher.
Thank you, because I see nobody here because as I'm using the screen for the presentation. I see nobody. Uh, I don't know if anybody is in there. And that's all. What leads me to the idea that I have to use my cell phone in order to see who are here, who is here. Sorry, give me a minute. Okay. Uh-huh. Mm. Okay. Okay. Cool. Okay, now I can continue. Okay, so we have right here David, Judith, Juliet, Kayla, and Sergio. Okay, cool. Okay. So clear with the metadata, right?
Yes, teacher.
Okay, you can chat too. I can watch right here the chat room if you want. Okay, cool. Let's continue. Okay, now the qualitative analysis that is going to be implemented next semester. But you need to know what to do there, right? Okay, this part is going to take you all semester long because how can I say this? Because what you're going to do right here is going to be just reading all the information you have got, you have collected. So while doing this, you're going to get familiar to the relationship between the question and the answer, and the relationship between the answer and the objective that you have created. Oops, I think somebody's here. Yes. Okay, and the objective that you have created for the instrument and for the project. If, for example, no, this is not. This is it. Okay, so for example, if, yeah, so we're going to see those similarities, and we're going to see if the objective that you have created has been accomplished or not, right? And in which way does this answer the research questions? Got it? So this is going to be just more than meaningful, more than significant, more than symbolic, okay? Because we're going to try to give answers to the reality, to the need you have established over there. Now we have two approaches. The first one is going to be deductive, the other one is going to be inductive. Okay, my first question is this. What do you understand by deductive and why do you understand by inductive?
Deductive is something big to something little, and inductive is from something little to something big. I don't know how to express myself, but I have this idea. I don't know if it's okay
Okay.
or it isn't.
Okay, I'm going to give you right here some examples. So for example, deductive and deductive refers to two distinct logical processes. Okay, yes, we know that, okay? Now, the deductive part is going to be just that logical process in which a conclusion drawn from a set of premises contain no more information than the premises taken collectively. Therefore, we can set some examples. For example, all dogs are animals. This is a dog. Therefore, this is an animal. So the truth of the conclusion is independent only on the method, right? So just because you have gathered the information, you're going to say something like, okay, it is true, or I have found this just because, sorry, I can deduce this just because I have found this, okay? So that is going to be deductive approach. Okay, example, all men and women are apes. These are a man and a woman, sorry. Therefore, they are apes, right? So just because I see that, I think that is going to be just a reality. What do we have right here? So what we have right here related to the deductive approach is, number one, that you're going to use your research questions to group the data and then look for similarities and differences, right? Example, once again, I'm coming back to the example of the dog. So all dogs are animals. And if this is a dog, so therefore this is an animal. Got it? So we're going to see those similarities. Now, I'm going to add, for example, a cat. So all cats are animals, but cats are different from dogs. Now I have found differences, right? So that's the idea right there for us to work in this case. Now, we use the deductive approach when time and resources are limited. In our case, we have used limited time and resources. And then it's going to be used when qualitative research is a smaller component of a larger quantitative study. So maybe yes, maybe no, but that's the way it works. All right. Now we have the inductive approach. Now, the inductive approach or the inductive reasoning, that is going to be another logical process, is in which a conclusion is proposed that contains more information than the observations or the experience on which it is based. So the deductive one is going to tell you something like, if I see something, that's going to be the truth, right? So if I see that there are some similarities and differences about the data, I'm going to group them in that way. But here in the inductive approach, we're going to, for example, we're going to use another example. Let's say every crow ever seen was black. Therefore, all crows are black, right? So for example, let's say every cat that I have seen is smaller compared to dogs, right? So therefore, I can create an inductive reasoning in which most of the times dogs are bigger or are taller than cats, right? So all in all, what I'm saying is that in research, we're going to use this in order for us to create a major design of the inquiry. So meaning going far beyond on what it was observed, right? And in here, we're going to use, for example, this emergent framework to group the data and then look for relationships. So in the deductive approach, we're going to see similarities and differences. But in the inductive approach, we're going to see is the relationships. So if your idea is going to be just more related to the inductive approach, so deal with that, okay, and work with that. But on the contrary, if your idea goes for the deductive approach, go for it, okay? Kind of clear with this information?
So in our case, we are going to use deductive approach.
If
We should use it.
yes, so if, for example, one of the needs for your what? For your got it. For your research is to show similarities and differences, use the deductive damn it, the deductive approach, right? But if you're going to see patterns that are going to be related from each other, use the inductive approach. No? Okay, even better.
But no,
Yes.
wait.
Okay.
In inductive, I would like to know more about inductive because with deductive, I understood it with that about similarities and differences.
Yeah.
But inductive.
Okay, we're going to see relationships. Example. Let's suppose I'm going to use my thesis, right? I used an inductive approach over there. For me to say, for example, what was the relationship between the use of the creation of videos, number one, the improvement of oral production, number two, and the process of uploading this information inside a YouTube or a Edmodo group for the students to watch their videos and for them to be able to see if their progress was good or not. If I were going to use the deductive approach, I would say something like, okay, let's see the beginning and the end, because I'm going to see similarities and differences between students. I'm going to say, for example, student A developed the assignment in a lesser time compared to a student D that spent more time than the others. So I'm watching over there similarities and differences. But if I'm going to see relationships over there, I'm going to say, for example, while creating the video, the students among themselves, they shared information on how to create these videos, since creating by themselves the scripts, correcting among themselves the pronunciation, and finally looking for editing softwares for them to create very good visual videos, for them to see, for them to add more instruments to be analyzed far beyond the oral production, parenthesis, verbal structures by themselves, something like that, right? So if we're going to see, for example, similarities and differences, we're going to see, for example, let's say, who learned in a faster way about languages, women or men? Relationships. Now we're going to see the relationships. So we're going to say, for example, what is going to be the relationship in terms of, I don't know, neurological issues for us to see the development among men and women inside a classroom and how they exchange information for them to improve this kind of learning. So that is going to be just the relationship, right? So no similarities and differences, but something that ties together in order to see advancements, right? Yes, no, you lost? Guys?
Mm,
Well, not to worry. I can look for further information about what is inductive approach, right? And
okay.
I can give you more ideas about this. But this is going to be for next semester. This is not for this semester. But we can start thinking about that. Okay? Okay, very good. Now, how to create this kind of focus or point of focus in analyzing text data? Okay, we're going to take into account right here the content, the attitude, if it was individual or shared activities, right? Or if we're going to talk about actual ideas or actual situations versus hypothetical situations. Remember, we're not working with hypotheses right here. Therefore, we're talking about the reality, right? Now, we're going to say right here that the primary message is going to be our content, right? The raw data. What is the raw data? The raw data is everything that you have: a video, an audio file, a text answer, whatever, right? Now, the evaluative attitude of the speaker towards the message. So, what you can infer in there, for example, you're talking about the teacher's methodology. Nice. But let's suppose you have an audio file, and in that audio file, the text that the student is using or the participant is using, let's suppose, says something like, I'm going to make it plain, right? It's something like, got it. I really like the idea of sharing the information through internet, taking into consideration that with this outbreak, we have to work with what we have. In order to do so, our teacher has motivated us to create autonomous spaces for us to learn even more. If I'm going to put it in that way, right, and you're going to try to evaluate the attitude, you're going to say right here that maybe the information you have got is not 100% real. Maybe it had been faked. So what to do with information that had been faked? So we're going to try to interpret what was beyond that, or we can talk once again with the informer for you to see that, for you to get the truth of things. So, example, if we're going to get more information related to this methodology, we can say something like, well, yes, the methodology is kind of good, but I prefer maybe the presential classes just because I'm used to that. So look for the tone of the voice, for the accent, for the intonation, for you to try to understand even more what is happening over there, right? Don't stick together to the text itself. No, go far beyond that. Analyze that. For example, it happened to me that when I was doing an interview and I was asking about this virtual spaces, one student said something like, well, yes, the virtual spaces are good, but what we need is going to be more feedback inside the classroom and not outside the classroom, right? So what I could infer was that um, the virtual spaces for that student were not enough, right? Although there was another answer that I remember in which I quote, that participant said something like, I know you have been doing the best that you can, but we have to take into account, we have to consider what other teachers have done the previous semesters. And in here, I can see what is going to be the development or the way in which virtual spaces have been designed for, in comparison with the previous semesters, in which teachers just shared information and no more. Got it? So in that way, we need to see what lies beyond the text. Okay. Now, in the case that is going to be just related to individual and shared group shared ideas, we need to state that, right? So if it was individual, okay, it's going to be easier because there's not going to be some like a kind of interruption. But if it's going to be group shared ideas, you have to pay attention to all of those little issues that make or transform the class into something unique, right? Or that uniqueness that you're going to get about the data gathering process. Okay. And then, so if the student, what is representing right here is going to be just the speaker, sorry, is going to represent something actual, so what is happening right now, previous, related to the other semesters, or hypothetical, in the case he or she, talking about the participant, is stating something something else that can be used inside our data our data gathering process. Okay, now this is not. Okay, here. For you to start this analytical process, it is suggested for you to use these three ways or three elements. So for example, summaries. So if you want, for example, you can summarize all the information that you have got. Let's say you have question number 1 from interview number 1, but you have 6 answers. You can summarize them, right? So by using or synthesizing, by using the most important information in there. Number 2, you're going to use self-memos, right? And those self-memos are going to be, for example, once you have organized a set of information, you can create a memo, right? For you to see, for example, ideas on what to follow, ideas on what to do next. For example, you have an idea and then you record one of those ideas and you say something like, okay, for me to take this into account, number 1, please look for further information on what student A has stated, because during the minute, let's say during the second 30 until the second 48, there was a key aspect that I couldn't understand, and that's it. So that is for you to have a guide on what to work later on. And also the research diary or the research journal that you have created. So your step-by-step process on how you got the information, right? And that's it. Okay, these are going to be just some terms that you can use in qualitative data analysis, right? For example, theory, themes, characteristic, coding, coding sorts, indexing. And here we're going to use some principles of qualitative data analysis, right? So let's say right here something related to the constructivist meanings, right? So in which people, they're not going to have the same idea, or they're not going to share maybe the same idea about a topic, right? So that is why it is called constructivist meanings. Okay, Then we're going to use right here the context bound, right? So context bound is because we're going to have some limits, right? So if the student or the participant is going to talk about some ideas that go far beyond our needs, so don't use that information, right? Stay with the information that sticks only in your needs. Okay, now the other part is going to be something like that this information can be useful in order to describe a phenomenon, right? So that's what you're working with, right? With this kind of information for you to describe the problem itself and for you to give some kind of solutions. Don't think that you're going to do this in less than 1 week and that's all. No, because you need to understand what the participants have stated. Number one. Number two, to understand if what they have given you is useful or not inside your project. And number three, to understand if there's going to be a relationship between what the participants said, what the authors inside the theoretical framework and the literature review, and what you want are working in the same line of ideas, right? And if not, you need to support why not. Got it? No? Yes? No? Yoo-hoo!
Yes, teacher.
Thank you. I have a chat here. Yes, yes. Thank you. Okay. And finally, number 5. Exceptional cases may yield insights into a problem or new idea for further inquiry, and this is extremely important. Why? Remember the limitations of your project, right? Um, the limitations of your project are going to come mainly from the objectives, right? Because you want to achieve something. But what if you have found information that goes far beyond that something? Sorry. So you can create further inquiries. You can create further, questions for further researchers, right? So you can give some other authors or some other researchers idea on what to follow. Okay, now the characteristics of the qualitative data analysis. Okay, in the quantitative data analysis, we know that this is going to be linear. Oh, we got this information right here, we have an answer. We have this information right here, we have an answer. We have this other information right here, we have another answer. And that's it. Here, in the qualitative part, it's going to be circular. Why? Because you have to read the information, you have to listen to the information, and you have to try to understand if the information that was provided by the participants fits into the requirements of your objectives, of your questions, or not. If not, you need to support that idea. And if yes, you need to support that idea too. We have to take into account that I think the second part right here says interactive, right? But I'm not pretty sure if iterative is a word. But I think there was a mistake. Ah, yes, iterative. Iterative. So, frequent. Okay, so yeah. So we're going to say that this kind of analysis is going to be frequent and progressive because it is going to be circular, right? So once we have we have found an information or patterns inside the information. We're going to say, for example, if it works or not, and then we'll start progressing. But if you have to come back, right? Not to worry. You have to have a very close interaction with the data. You have to analyze it, to understand it, to become one with the information. Teacher, that sounds like yoga. That sounds like a spiritual thing. Yes, it works right here, right? Because if you don't understand what you have in your hands related to what you want to achieve in your project, nobody else is going to give you that idea. Now, the data collection and analysis is simultaneous. Well, in this case, we have done a different process in which we're collecting data first and we are going to analyze next. But I would say that in this case, we're going to say something like, we're going to collect and organize, right? Why? Because next semester you don't know what kind of information you have right now, right? Or right then. If you start organizing the information here, next semester is going to be easier for you to understand your needs, right? The next part is going to be that the level of analysis varies. Yeah, because if you're going to analyze just a question or just one answer, so the level of analysis right here is going to be kind of slight. But if we're going to work or we're going to analyze, for example, an observation protocol, right, about a class related to 45 minutes, that is going to be longer, right? Now you have to use inflections, key terms. For example, you're going to say, oh, this information is going to be important. This is relevant. This information is pointless. This information is non-relevant. This information may be important or may be relevant, right? So how do you know that? Base yourselves in your questions. Then can be sorted in many ways, can be arranged, organized in many ways. You state the way in which you're going to organize the data. And that this qualitative data, every qualitative data has itself a meaning, right? So for example, if you're going to ask a student, do you like your teacher's methodology? And the answer is no, it has a meaning. But if you had created a sub question like why, and then you're going to get over there the support to that previous meaning. Okay? Okay, we continue here. Let's say noticing, collecting, and thinking model. This is going to be very good and very funny at the same time. Maybe for me, because you have finished that process, but maybe not for you. But I'm going to tell you the secret of doing this. Enjoy what you're doing. Teacher, how can I enjoy something that is going to be kind of frustrating, kind of boring? Bingo. Kind of boring. So once you have collected things right here, and I'm going to quote one I forgot. I got it. One quote from this movie that is called Welcome to Zombieland in 2009. There's an actor that says, enjoy the little things. When you're collecting things right here, you're going to notice some other aspects. And yet, you're going to find some little aspects that are going to tell you something like, okay, you are going to guide the interpretation of this data the interpretation of this, just because this aspect, the aspect that you have created in your in your research. And it's going to be like that. Then you're going to say, okay, cool, this is going to be nice. And then think about aspects, some other aspects. Example, okay, what if I understand this, or I get this answer, or I relate this answer to this other answer that I have got from other students, and then I'm going to have a different pattern that is going to answer my question in a different way. So you have to be innovative right here. You have to be extremely creative, right? Okay. Now I'm going to give you some another key aspect for you to take into account here. So number one, you're going to organize the data. But David was asking me some okay, but if I have an observation protocol, how do I organize the data? As you have or observed, let's say something I don't know. Let's suppose you have observed 3, 4 classes. I'm just exaggerating, right? You're going to see which were the patterns used related to the what is this? What is the name of your project? Learning tools, learning activities, learning technologies, LKTs, learning knowledge technologies, if I'm not wrong, right? David. Lucho.
Give me a moment, teacher. Yes, learning and knowledge technology.
Thank you so much. Okay. So you're going to organize the data. For example, you're going to say that the first observation was related to how the teacher implemented that inside the classroom. Well, not inside the classroom, but inside the virtual learning environment. But in the other class was related to how students were dealing with that information. And in the other class, you were going to say how teacher and students were using those information, those tools for them to gain knowledge, or for them to be informed about something related to the class, right? That is going to be something like the organization of the data. You're going to see, for example, you have created a protocol in which you were going to see, for example, the role of the teacher, the role of the student, the role of the material, and in which way this material was used and implemented by the teacher by taking into consideration all the steps that you have created to the low T level, something like that, I forgot, right? So based on your theory, you can organize the data for you to give an answer to your questions. Boom, that's it. You get it?
Yeah, so for example, when we create levels and when we organize the grills and also the answers, we organize them according to the theory,
Yes.
to the frameworks that we had.
Yes. You have two things to take advantage from. Number one, the theory. Yeah, the theoretical framework. And number two, the literature review, because in the literature review you're going to see how these researchers have used the information they got, right, for them to see, for you to see, for you to have a guide on what they have found, followed by what you have found, yes, in order for you to know how to organize that data. So for example, if the objective of the first observation is different from the second observation, you need to state why. Those observations were different. And if there's going to be a relationship between observation 1 and observation 2, that is going to be the way in which you're going to organize it. What you have found in one observation, what you have found in the second observation, the things in common, the different things, and the things that can be related. As you see right here, the second step says identify frameworks. So labels, you're going to label the information right here, okay? Labels about that, about what? What you have found in the theory, what you have found in the literature review, what you are required to answer in your research questions. Now, this data that has been organized and the labels that you have created, they need to be once again reorganized in these frameworks, right? For you to see if there's going to be a connection, a relationships, if there are going to be patterns. These frameworks that you have created and these frameworks that they already have information are going to be used for describing the analysis, and that's it. That is going to be mostly the process we're going to take into account in order to organize this data, right? Here it says second order of analysis, but if it is going to be just required, okay? Let's see right here. First, organizing the data. How to organize the data? So first, you transcribe the information. You organize the information in one document, in one clear document. I'm going to simplify this. Example, when you have taken notes from a class, you start taking notes at a fast way. What you have to do then, more than a summary, is to write the whole process that you have evidenced once the class has been finished, right? For what? Because you are going to remember some information that maybe you have forgotten to put while taking your notes. And you need to link what you have seen from the very beginning of the class until the end, right? So that is going to be just the observation. And also, maybe you're going to write a script based on the information you have got from an interview, right? So you're going to describe the whole process. You're not going to put just, for example, just the first question and then the answer, second question, then the answer. No, because that is going to be just pale. That is going to be just boring. You need something interesting, something interactive for you to know how to gather that information and how to interact with that information for you to answer your research questions, okay? And that's it. Here, maybe you're going to translate the data, right? Because your raw data maybe is in Spanish. Maybe some of you already have it in English, but maybe it's in Spanish. So once you're going to interpret the information, you need to translate it, right? But if you're going to use, for example, in a verbatim way, the voices of the students, you can use that in the language that was provided. If it was in Spanish, do it in Spanish. If it was in English, do it in English. Now, data cleaning. When we say data cleaning, is when you're going to find this kind of information that is going to be pointless. So, pointless information, leave it aside. Once again, I have talked about the labeling the data, right? For what? Because you need to work with structured data. You need to be familiarized with the data, right? And for you not to get lost when trying to find this information. Then, you need to identify the framework. What I told you, you need to read again the theory. You need to read again the theoretical framework. Yeah, the theoretical framework and the literature review. Why? Because you need to create your labels. How are you going to create your labels? By explaining and exploring the data, right? So for example, this data is going to be just related to affective issues. Boom, there. Methodological issues. Boom, there. Teacher and student or student and teacher relationship. Boom, there's going to be the information, right? And as you see right here, when you create the framework, you will have a structure, you will have a label, you will have a defined data. All in all, what you have is going to be just a coding plan, right? So how are you going to work with that data? With my plan. The third step right here is going to be just sort data into framework. Okay, now that you have organized the data, now that you have created the labels, right? Here, what you're going to do is to create entries into packages, right? So you're going to start coding everything. You're going to start creating codes, and that's all. In order to do what? In order to analyze all of those codes. Related to what? Related to the questions you have already created in the question sections for you to create answers. For you to give your to support what you have found, to answer those questions based on the labels, based on the codes, based on the information, based on the theory. If we're going to say, or where we're going to say if the information has been already answered or not, if what you got was essential or was pointless, but you need to support every single thing that you're going to say. Okay, this is going to be just the circle order analysis. Right here, for example, what you're doing is going to be just exploratory research, right? But for beyond that, ouch. So for example, a second order of analysis is going to, when for example, you need to get a second, how can I say that? Yeah, when you need to gather more data after you have gathered information. For example, you're going to compare two types of information, right? So you need to do that again. But it's going to be just more for quantitative things or mixed issues. Now, related to the analysis, we're going to be focused right here on content analysis, what we're doing, narrative analysis, maybe inside the research journal, discourse analysis. No, that is going to be just related to applied linguistics. Framework analysis, no, because we are not going to be focused on analyzing the theory itself, right? And grounded theory, no, because we're not working with theories right here, right? We're not creating our own theory. Therefore, we're going to work with content analysis and narrative analysis and maybe a little bit of framework analysis, right? So what is going to be just the content analysis? So it's going to be just analyzing the verbal behavioral data that you have obtained, right? In order to do that, in order to do what we have talked before. Example, if you were classifying that information, if you were summarizing the information, and then you're going to set your own answers about that, right? In here, you have to take into account two more things. Number one, that you're going to work with descriptive ideas, descriptive analysis, and number two, that you're going to work with an interpretative analysis. Descriptive, what you have found, and you're going to mention the step-by-step process that you implemented in order to find that, in order to gather that information. Interpretative, so you're going to talk about the meaning inside that text. And the narrative analysis is going to be just what you have found, right? For example, this is going to be very good for the observations, right? Because there you can set out your point of view, right? And maybe you're going to reformulate ideas, stories, information, and that's all. Well, this course analysis is going to be used also in applied linguistics and in action research if, for example, you're going to work with the spoken interaction or the spoken production, right? And that's all. Well, maybe you can add a little bit aspects related to the discourse analysis, if required, right? Related to the validity or the kind of information that you have got orally. I mean, via a voice message or an interview that you have conducted via Zoom, Meet, Jitsi, whatever. The framework analysis right here is going to be just divided into five different levels. So first one, that is going to be familiarization. That is going to be just transcribing and reading data. Identifying a thematic framework. So you're going to create initial coding. In order to create, for example, priority issues and emergent issues. You're going to use codes right here, right? So for you to difference, for example, what you have got from each interview related to what you have got from each participant, right? And for you not to get confused with the information. Then if you want to use charts, right, for you to see the differences in answers or the similarities, whatever. And finally, mapping and interpretations. But yet again, based on the theory you have established. Finally, we have the grander theory. But this is going to be just related to the theory you have established. But here we're not working with theories. We're not working with hypotheses. We're working with some fundamental ideas to prove that something is working or is not working based on case study, mainly. Okay. Now, for the observation protocols that was asked by David, we're going to take into account some strategies. While I was talking to you some minutes ago, related to this. Number one, the chronology. You need to talk about when you did that, the amount of time spent. And you're going to tell the story from the beginning to the end, right? So you need to create that document away from the one you have related to the notes, to the note-taking process, okay? That is going to be number one. Number two, key events. So, which were those fundamental events inside the classroom that caught your attention the most? And then describe the settings, right? So, for example, it was in a virtual environment. Yes, but which one? Jitsi or Zoom. Okay, talk about Zoom, talk about Jitsi. Talk about, for example, if there were some forget the word. Give me a second. I forgot this word. Okay, got it. If there were some intermittences, some flashings, right? So you need to describe that. Also describe the people, the teacher, the students that were there. Or if it was just related to students, describe them. The process, right? The process you did in order to recruit the participants. The process you start interacted with them, right? The process in which interaction was held, and some other issues, right? So, for example, if students they were not using their camera, like we're not using here, right? Or for example, if students they have just silenced their microphones, right? I'm not saying that this is bad for now, no, but that is going to be something for you to show later on, right? And then the quality and qualitative studies, right? We need to have this following criteria followed by these issues, and then we're going to have some kind of solutions. The criteria is going to be this, that's the word that I was looking for, credibility, right? So you're going to talk about how credible is your information. So for example, if your information was invented or created, or the information was provided from first hand, I mean from the interviewee, of the people observed. Number two, we have transferability, right? So if the information that you have got was based on some questions, and if these questions were tested before, right? So I'm talking about a pilot stage, or I'm talking about a validation issue, right? Let's say, for example, the credibility, what could be the solution for it? So, for example, prolonged and persistent observations, triangulation, peer debriefing, member checks, event case studies. So, based on the theory you have in order to gather this data, and how truthful is the information you have got. Then, the transferability. Let's say, thick description, referential adequacy, prevention of premature closure of data, reflexive journal. So those are going to be something like in which way this information is going to be transferred from one place to another. Example, I forgot. The place it comes from, right? Dependability, so the consistency. So if it depends on external factors, on internal factors, on what? And then the conformability. So the objectivity of this. That is going to be related to the credibility. Wow. For the next semester, we're going to use some computer softwares, right? That are going to give you an easier way for you to organize your data, right? So in this case, what you're going to do is to, for example, once you have organized your data, here you're going to see, you're going to create patterns, right? You're going to link one data from another. You're going to create more codes, right? And well, basically it's going to be like that. But for example, what if I don't want to use a software? So you can do it manually, right? But it's going to be longer. So for example, in this, for example, there is a software that is called MaxQDA, and the other one is going to be called Atlas TI. They work the same, right? But they're going to give you some ideas on how to organize the data, the transcription process. For example, you can relate the observation with a what? With a video that you have recorded, right? Or, for example, you can, in the transcription, you can add, for example, expression. You can select an expression, and in there, you can add a document you have seen on the internet for you to have an explanation about that, right? So that's the good thing about using the software. But in the traditional method, as you can see right here, so you have to do the transcription with a word processor or by hand, right? You're going to create multiple copies of the text. You need to read, you need to add codes manually. You have, for example, you're going to use codes with colors. Anyway, this was done in the previous time. I don't know if you remember that, for example, there was a kind of web created by, forgot the word, by strings, right? Yeah, by threads, sorry, hilos, for you to see the relationship about that. Do you remember, for example, these threads that are created at a police department investigation part? So like this. Sorry. This one. This is the one that I'm talking about, right? So, for example, this was done even better. This one. This was done at a traditional way for you to organize the data, right? So you can do the same here, but even more organized by using using the the software, right? Okay, and that's it. And well, I'm going to stop here for me to give you more ideas on what to continue next class, okay? And well, that's it. I'm going to stop the recording here.